All right, guys, we got something interesting to watch. Why football most effective tactic died overnight.
Pep Guardiola doesn't
Let's
always
check it
like to
out.
dive into the nitty-gritty of tactics in post-match press conferences, but after this encounter, he couldn't have been clearer.
that that it doesn't work like it worked in the past.
It was a reluctant admission that his system, and perhaps his very philosophy, was under threat from the modern game's evolutions. And at the core of that philosophy is positional play, the approach that had come to dominate elite football over the past decade.
Also, one thing I want to say because a lot of people think that I get it. I get it that the Manchester City teams are not like before, but you guys need to remember they bought they bought a whole new team. It's new players. They need to adapt, Um, you know, I feel like Manchester City fans being dramatic. I'm not gonna lie. People being dramatic because so far what? So far they what? They second in the league. They also still competing in every competition. So I don't know. I feel like the City fans and all the media and stuff they've been dramatic about the whole Manchester City stuff. Yes, they're not like before. Yes, they like a form and stuff, but they are not terrible. They're not terrible, and it's gonna take time for the players to like adjust to the play style and everything. And also, what I can add is that they had injuries. They got injuries. The Guardiola gone is completely out for the rest of the season. Ruben Diaz is out too. They just signed Gay, but Gay couldn't. He can't play in the Champions League until he's until they get him there. So yeah, so they bought this Max Allen back. He's average, because he's still young. So it's a lot of stuff. Like you cannot, but I don't think they're terrible. Like
Barcelona won everything with it. City turned it into a science, and it continued to permeate throughout Europe and beyond. And now positional play's biggest advocate is admitting and warning you that its foundations are crumbling.
Today, the modern football is the way the Bournemouth play, the Newcastle play, like Brighton play, like Liverpool always have been like that, like we were. It's the modern football. Today, the modern football is not.
yeah, it's not the same.
Positional.
And one thing, Sue, I want to add is that I'm talking about the Premier League. The Premier League, it's a lot of long balls, long balls, long balls. They doing a lot of long balls. Arsenal, Newcastle. Oh my God, it's terrible to watch. But um, what else? Low blocks. A lot of most of the teams in the Premier League. I'm talking about the Premier League because that's what Manchester City playing. A lot of teams now play mid block, low blocks. It's impossible to play ball. It's just completely different comparing to back in the day where people were like more like getting the ball in their feet, pass, short passing. It was more about like short passing and stuff like that. But now you have more like long balls, set pieces, like, oh, let's throw the ball all the way. This is not it. This is not it. It's my opinion. But since 2-3 years ago, they started with that and it's not it. It's not the
being
same.
there, you have to rise the rhythm unbelievable. It could not.
And if you've been watching football over the last year, you felt it. Something is fundamentally shifting at the very top of the game. Teams that built entire identities around positional superiority are scrambling for answers. The largest tactical change in years is unfolding before our very eyes. So, what killed it? And has a coach from the 1940s already figured out the answer to all of this? Between roughly 2017 and 2023, there was a near consensus on how elite teams should attack. If you watch Barcelona, City, Liverpool, or Arsenal, they all converge on remarkably similar structures in possession. The 3-2-5 or the
Yeah. Yeah, Arsenal, yeah.
3-5. Variations on a theme, but the core idea was identical. So much so that it became a problem in the eyes of some. The pepification of football. Every team trying to be alike.
Yep.
And many of those teams used positional play. But it was only so popular because it helped teams do what they're supposed to do. Win. So why was it so effective? Well, almost every team, when they were in settled defense, tended to defend in some sort of a zonal system, whether they were in a back 5, a 4-3-3, or a 4-4-2. Defenders were responsible for protecting their area, and not directly trying to pick up a man all the time. And zones meant there were gaps that were begging to be exploited. Because if every defender is expected to protect a specific zone, what happens if the opposition prioritizes putting multiple players right on the edge of multiple zones? Well, we saw what happens. Controlled chaos. The back fours felt the brunt of this, because teams knew that 90% of teams had a back four. So what would happen if you attacked with a front 5? Well, first, there would be the natural overload
of
here
course.
quantitatively, but it also meant they could truly expose the edges of the zone. The half space became the talk of the town, the area where midfielders, centre-backs and full-backs could all make arguments that someone else should be covering that player. Any dropping false nines could cause a similar dilemma between the centre-backs and every covering midfielder.
Another thing I want to add, I probably already said that, but like I said, it's all about getting the players time to adapt. You know, it's all about that. You know, get them, like when you see a player like Doku, for example, when he first started, he was good, but he wasn't even as good as now. Now you can tell the player adapt. Doku really playing better. He played more centrally. You know, he used to play more wide. Now he playing more centrally. Like he playing better on this way. Like he's adapting. Other players gotta do the same, and especially the defenders. You know.
The defense looked to just shift across instead. Well, now the switch and potential isolation was on. Positional play was designed to create these zones of ambiguity. Park your wingers wide to pin the fullbacks, drop your false 9 to drag the centre-backs, flood the half spaces with attackers, maintain your structures, let the ball do the work, and watch defenses scramble to figure out who's marking who. For years, it was the most effective attacking system in world football. But defenses adapt. They always do. And what came next made positional play look dangerously outdated. What do you notice when you look at this scenario from the Bayern Munich versus Arsenal match in 2025, where we see Bayern Munich in the high press? And how about if we put it side to side with what Arsenal were doing when they were in their high press? Well, in both scenarios, just look how high up the centre-backs are. This would have been unthinkable just a few years ago. Both teams are defending with extreme man-to-man pressing structures. And this isn't an outlier anymore. It's what's normal at the top of your
that's what
because man-to-man
most
pressing
teams
solves the problem that positional play created. Remember those zones of ambiguity? The half spaces where defenders had to communicate who picks up who. Well, they're gone. Every defender knows who exactly they're responsible for. And if the false 9 drops deep, well, the centre-back goes with him. All the way. No handover, no confusion, just relentless man orientation.
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. I don't think I don't think they go that high. I saw this. I saw this probably twice, but it's very rare.
Pressure. Watch Upamecano here.
Let me
the
see.
Man drops deep and he doesn't hesitate. He follows relentlessly.
Yeah, but I don't think they do this anymore. I don't think so. I don't think that was crazy, but I don't think they do this anymore.
And this is why
that's
man
crazy.
marking has become so effective. There's no ambiguity anymore. But more than that, every single player is receiving the ball under instant pressure. They're not getting the time to turn, the time to scan, or the time to pick their pass. They're just fighting to control the ball. This means a lot of possession teams are often losing the ball, going backwards, or being forced into desperate long balls. The pretty patterns that unlocked zonal defenses don't work when there's a defender breathing down your neck the instant the ball arrives. It also doesn't help that one of the goals of positional play was often to get men in dangerous positions between the lines. Well, if you're facing a strict man-to-man system, there
you know
are
which
no
team? There's a team that was doing this. That was Chelsea. Chelsea was doing this.
Make it much harder to get men there. So
Chelsea did this. They did this against Barcelona in the Champions League recently.
Perfect system, and that positional play is just dead and we move on. Well, not quite, because all of this has happened before. Because here's the thing about football. These cycles are new, and the solution to this man-oriented defending was actually written 85 years ago. Oh, and if you're liking this video and want to elevate your tactical knowledge, sign up for Football for Teach You the Soviet Nothing But Tactics. His team, Dynamo Moscow, was refining the WM formation, which was essentially a 2-3-5, playing what Arkadiev called organized disorder. The idea was simple. 4 forwards would hold their orthodox positions, moving in their channels like you'd expect. But one player would suddenly break the pattern, running diagonally left to right, disrupting the defensive structure. A forward moving unexpectedly, much like a false 9 perhaps. And when that happened, Arkadiev explained, it made it difficult for the defending team to follow that player, and the other forwards benefited because they suddenly had a free teammate to whom they could pass. Organized disorder. This is what we might call in the modern day positional fluidity. And then opponents adapted, and guess what the most common solution was? Strict man-to-man marking. They had figured out that the organized disorder was creating free men.
That's
so
what they did.
Freedom. Every attacker gets a defender. No more gaps. Sound familiar? Arkadiev had seen this coming. His response was immediate. As he said, with the transition of the defensive line from a zonal game to marking specific opponents, it became tactically logical to have all the attackers and even the midfielders roaming, meaning that the defenders had to switch to a mobile system, following their opponents according to where they went. He understood something fundamental about man marking. When defenses go man-oriented, the only solution is extreme fluidity. Make them follow you into positions they're uncomfortable defending, because if they follow you, you drag their structure apart. If they don't follow you, you've got a free man. Either way, you've created a problem they can't solve with discipline.
Yeah, my thing is like either way, you in trouble, bro. Like
40. And in 2025, we're watching the exact same patterns unfold. And in fact, it's just one element of the modern solution to this problem. And one manager has been ahead of the curve with how modern football is going. And it's not Pep Guardiola, but rather his former understudy. Mikel Arteta spent years under Pep at City. He learned the positional play gospel, but somewhere along the line he started to see what was coming. The shift towards aggressive man marking, the physicality creeping into the game, and the need for something different. And he slowly built a squad for it. Look at the team he has. Players who are not only
like, you know, one thing about Michael is that he built a team like physically strong, you know. And you know, it's just that was smart, you know, because when you come to like league like the Premier League, you need people that strong. Like what I can say about Pep is like most player he looking for is like technical player, you know, because they're like, you know, to, you know, pass the ball around, you know, dribble, like, you know. Arteta went more like on the Italian kind of physical kind of football.
To drop into a position temporarily.
They got similar thing, but the team is just different.
True flexibility. And that flexibility is key to making extreme rotations work against man marking. Because if you're going to drag defenders all over the pitch,
a good transfer window, I'm not gonna lie.
Comfortable operating anywhere. That centre back who's following Marino around the pitch, is he comfortable tracking him here? Probably. But how about here? Or here? By having not just cute little interchanges and rotations, but true shape-altering rotations, they ask the opposition, just how committed are you to this man-to-man press? Every rotation moves players out of position and creates gaps far bigger than those half spaces that positional play allowed to potentially be taken advantage of. The forwards are next to the centre-back one moment, the winger moves to central midfield, and the fullback alternates between being an extra centre-back or overlapping, all at a moment's notice. This is what Arteta saw coming, the need for players who could thrive in multiple positions. And Pep, well, he's also taking the flexible route, but in a slightly different way. For years, Pep was Mr. Width. Wingers pinned wide, the 3-2-5 with extreme horizontal stretching, with the goal being to have his most skillful players out wide for potential isolations against the fullbacks. That was the blueprint. But not anymore. He said it himself, you have to ride the rhythm. And what he means is this. Modern football doesn't allow for the kind of controlled, structured progression that positional play was built on. So he's adapting. Technicality is still at the core of his team, and he's packed more midfielders into the team than ever, with O'Reilly
he you know, that's, let me say,
becoming the permanent fullbacks. All of a sudden, the widest players are not Pep's most skillful
Play
players, but
narrow.
rather players that facilitate the rest of the team's objectives. Pep is now leaning on a narrow
narrow,
attacking
yeah.
structure more than ever before, and a structure which demands that every central player be extremely technical to allow for super tight combinations.
But this is so, that's what I mean. This
Man-to-man
is
marking
so
makes it hard
risky.
to find men between the lines. But by having so many players concentrated in one zone, the hope is that if just one defender is asleep, the overload occurs, and suddenly they can get a man between the lines. It's a big reason why more than ever, Pep for the most part is not using
But this never works. This never works because most team who plays against City, they play low block, they play mid block. It's impossible to play that. That play style, like if you go for a 4-1-4-1 or like a a 4-3-3, like he showed you, like this is not gonna work, and this is why he's failing because there's an overload there, and it's not, the ball is not going through. You never have that one player. You never have that one player who's like free, like never.
In the build-up, that
Like,
extra man is too valuable to waste.
that extra man, you don't have him.
He has to be high and a part of the close proximity midfield. And here's another important aspect that Pep is doubling down on: the 1v1. Before, his most skillful players were out wide. Now, even if they start wide on paper, they almost instantly drop in. Doku is the best example of this. The typical out-and-out hug-the-touchline winger that Pep would have instructed to just get past the fullback is all of a sudden drifting in as early as possible. Shirky on the right does similar. And even his deeper midfielders, often Foden or Silva, excel in 1v1. And why is this so important?
Low-key, I don't like it. Low-key.
Well, one of the ways of breaking a man-to-man press is by having a player beat their man. And this is where the system can begin to crumble. Just one man getting past his defender means that now either he can progress untracked, or another defender has to come across, leaving his man free, and it can become a devastating domino effect. But there are many types of 1v1s. And dribbling isn't the only way to get past your man. And this is somewhere else that Arteta was ahead of the pack. Look at that Arsenal squad again. Gabriel, Saliba, Rice,
GG, bro.
Marino, Havertz, White, Calafiori, Saka, and more. Many of these are technical, but there's something else about them. They're either massive, incredibly strong physically, or have incredible running power. They're athletes, and that's not an accident. Arteta understood something crucial about the new man-marking world. If you can't pass through a press, and you can't dribble through it, what if you simply overpower it? Rice is the perfect example. If a midfielder steps up to engage him, he can drop all the way back to a left-back zone if needed, creating space elsewhere. But here's the critical part. Can his man actually keep up with him physically? Can they match his stride when he bursts forwards? Can they battle when he holds them off? Most of the time, they can't. Rice can just literally hold them off, run past them, and advance the Gunners into a dangerous position. This is the question that Arteta's been asking in recruitment. Not just, is this player technical, but when they're being pressed man-to-man, would they be able to hold their ground? Can they win the physical battle long enough to make the pass, complete the turn, or drive forward with the ball? Because man-marking only works if your players can actually stick with their assignments. And if Arsenal have a size, strength, and technicality advantage across multiple positions, suddenly that man-oriented press becomes exhausting to maintain. Defenders get worn down trying to track players who are just bigger, stronger, faster. But that's just another layer of the solution. Flexibility lets you rotate and drag defenders out of position. Technicality lets you play quick combinations in tight spaces. Dribbling lets you beat your man directly. And physicality, it means even when none of that works, you can still muscle your way through. But that physicality can also be used in a different way. A few years ago, the trend at the top of football was clear. False nines everywhere. For a while, Pep built City around players like Foden, Jesus, or Sterling occupying the 9 role. Arsenal did similar with Jesus, or Havertz, and many more as their central striker, many of whom were more comfortable dropping deep to link the play rather than pinning centre-backs. But that's changing. Pep got rid of Ederson and brought in Donnarumma. That's a statement. Donnarumma isn't as comfortable with the ball at his feet. In fact, he's probably the worst goalkeeper with a ball at his feet.
That's a myth. Honestly, that's a myth. Honestly, since they signed this guy, I feel like he's been okay with his feet. Honestly, I feel like he's been good with his feet. That's a myth. I don't know why people keep saying that.
has chosen as his first choice. But he's a better shot stopper than Edison, which tells you something about how City are planning to play. They're willing to go long more often to bypass their press entirely. They no longer mandate the shorter, intricate passes of
I mean, he's not the best with his feet. I agree with that, but he's not the worst either. I guess.
Edison. And while what's been happening up front for a few seasons now is no mystery. Previously, when Pep had traditional nines, he drilled into them that their job was more than just goals. Lewandowski became more well-rounded. Aguero's City career was at risk for a moment until he adapted. They all needed to add more to their games. And for a while, Haaland did do a bit of this as well, dropping in whenever possible. And he had to. His runs in behind were consistently ignored, with City instead opting for short passes to work their way up the pitch as a unit, hopefully resulting in a high XG tap-in. But now, something's changed. When Haaland makes a run, the pass comes, even if it is a lower percentage pass, because in this era, when man marking makes the perfect build-up impossible, directness is king, and you can just launch a ball to a physical specimen who can fight for it, hold it up, or run in behind. It's part of the reason the City system now squeezes in as many playmakers as possible to try and find these runs. Arsenal are doing similar. Gyökeres is exactly this profile, a physical forward who can fight for the ball in the air, run in behind, or use his frame to hold off defenders. When the pretty passing patterns aren't working, when the rotations aren't creating space, you need someone who can do this. This is directness as a tactical solution. And for Arsenal, there's another route that's becoming increasingly more important, one that doesn't require beating anyone on the ball at all. If man marking makes open play this difficult, if every receiver is under instant pressure, why not just wait for a set piece? The league has figured this out. Over the past 5 years, set piece reliance had been dropping consistently.
Oh my god, this
Teams
is what
could
I was
still
talking
break you
about.
down in open play, so why focus on corners? But at the time of writing this season, almost 28% of Premier League goals are coming from set pieces.
This is insane.
And that's excluding penalties.
This is what I was talking about. Like, this right here, it's a whole part of the problem.
Highest in 5 years. And in the past, where set-piece reliance was almost looked down upon, reserved for relegation battlers, now even the cream of the crop do it. Arsenal, Chelsea, Spurs and United are all experiencing 5-year highs on set-piece reliance. Put simply, when you can't unlock defenses in open play anymore, you need another route. And this is where Arsenal's physicality obsession pays off even more. Because in set-piece situations, all those physical players and their advantages get magnified. When the ball goes into the box, who's winning those aerial duels? Who's holding their ground in the box? It's just a pragmatic solution. Elite defending has forced elite attacking to diversify. They can't rely on one method anymore. Rotations, dribbling, physicality, directness, long throws, set pieces, all of it matters now, because there's no one solution to modern defending, so there's no one attacking solution. And for a while, there was a blueprint. Every exciting young manager was playing a WM that leaned on positional play. And now, that blueprint's been torn up. Football's becoming less uniform, and that's the point. Football goes in cycles. The moment a most effective strategy is found, teams begin figuring out how to conquer it. But what do you think the next evolution is? Drop it down below.
And don't forget to sign up for Football Fundamentals for free through the link down below. If you enjoy,
like I said, honestly, I think the main problem, if I talk about the Premier League itself, I think the main problem is teams playing low block, mid blocks, and that's it. You know, it's like the game is different now. You know, the game is really different. It's not like before. It's not like back in the day. It's just different. So, you know, when it comes to Man City, they're just gonna need to like wait. Hopefully, they can be lucky when it comes to injuries and stuff. But they're not bad. They're not terrible. You know, yeah, you know, they got a big problem when it comes to their back line. I think the midfielder now is good. They got Nico Gonzalez, they got Reiners. Reiners is not a defender, but he's still, you know, he can still like go box to box, you know, as a box to box midfielder. But I think Man City problem is more their backline, and the fact that they got so many injuries, but without that, before that, they were fine. Guardiola was good. Diaz was coming good. He was like getting back in shape and stuff. So, I think now they signed Gay, so they should be okay. But, you know, in my opinion, I think people being dramatic, when it comes to City and Pep, you know. Uh, but yeah, Pep, you can tell it's not the same team as before because the team's playing different now, So that's why. So yeah, comment down below, guys. Let me know what you think, and yeah, man. That's it for me. I'm out.